The book, of course, is unique because of the whole approach. It tries to present all the works of Sri Aurobindo, the collected works, I believe the 36 volumes. And there are essays on each of his works. You have written a few. So how did this whole idea for the book come about? And tell us a little bit about the structure of the book.
Yeah, to give you a context, Millie, just put your hand up. Yeah, the enormity of what he has written begins from here and goes somewhere about here.
Yeah, the volumes are like,
In
they'll fill
thick,
more than a
thick,
shelf.
big volumes, 36 volumes, 21,000 pages, 6 million words that he wrote in his entire life, which have been collated now. The last book was brought out in 2019 into what is known as the complete works of Sri Aurobindo. The writings encompass political writings that I talked about. Uh, they talk about cultural writings, for instance, Renaissance in India. There is deep poetry, collected works, and his epic Savitri. There are philosophical works like The Life Divine and smaller aspects in essays, Divine and Human, or essays in philosophy and yoga. And of course, then there are the spiritual works, which is synthesis of yoga, Savitri again. He's talked about scriptures. There is on the Vedas, on Upanishads. He has done a bit of the Mahabharata. So his writings encompass a whole lot of things. For me personally, for instance, the way he's talked about international relations in the human cycle is very, very applicable today in what we are seeing. So you can pick up any aspect of Sri Aurobindo, dramas, short stories, letters to sadhaks. He's a difficult writer. If you begin reading, it's not easy. His grammar, his vocabulary, his expression, the ideas that he talks about, the depth to which he goes, are not easy to negotiate for a first-time reader. They weren't for me. I mean, a whole lot of what I'm telling you is my own experience. I'm sure some of you may be able to transcend them and reach wherever he takes you earlier, faster, better. For me, it was a very difficult journey. So grappling with just the vocabulary is amazing. Um, there is a lot of Indian spiritual traditions whose language is restricted to Sanskrit or to Prakrit or to the local flavor of what we mean by words. Sri Aurobindo's writings, I find, are the closest where he wrote in his primary language was English. His writings capture the Indian ethos, the Indian essence, the six spiritual schools of Indian traditions, and translates them and offers them to us in a language that is closest to what I think the roots are in our scriptures. Uh, anyway, so 150th birth anniversary was on its way on 15th August 2022, coinciding with India's 75th Independence Day. And I thought that maybe it's time to explore Sri Aurobindo. I believe, and you may agree or disagree, Sri Aurobindo has been cancelled. In the 75 years of India's independence, he has been cancelled. He was cancelled earlier, but we thought that after independence, we should talk about our own rishis, our own thinkers, our own philosophers in a better, more mature and deeper, with greater respect. None of that happened. So I thought that maybe it's time to bring Sri Aurobindo slightly more mainstream than the ashram community to which I belong is. And therefore I said, let me try and write this book. And as I began to write the book, I said, this is beyond me. Not only those 36 volumes, I mean, those I have read all of them. So physical reading is one thing, but the deeper reading, the essence, trying to capture what Sri Aurobindo is trying to say, the ideas that he grapples with, is not easy. So I contacted Devdeep, my co-editor. I said, let's do this together. And Devdeep began, and he said, even he can't do it. He teaches several of Sri Aurobindo's books in the ashram school at Pondicherry. So the two of us together, who have been immersed in his work for 2 decades, and maybe longer, were not able to negotiate this. And then we got experts, people who have spent 2 decades, 3 decades with one book to write. So altogether, there are 21 writers that we got together from across the world, some scholars, some writers, some political people, from across the spectrum, men, women, foreigners, Indians, everywhere. and brought this book called Reading Sri Aurobindo. So this is our small tribute to Sri Aurobindo in his 150th birth anniversary.
No, I think it is, so this is a very special book. You know, if you want to delve and know more and try and understand Sri Aurobindo's writings, thoughts, this is a great introduction to Sri Aurobindo, and you can begin with this. Because like Gautam said, some people do find his writing a bit complex and difficult to understand. So this does simplify and makes those thoughts more accessible for general readers. On that note, Gautam, you know, let's say if a reader had to begin or start reading Sri Aurobindo, what is the text that you would recommend that they begin with and why?
Yeah. So I answered that question in the book also. You know, people keep asking me, which book should I read first? And I have no answers. Are you a poet? Read Savitri. Savitri is difficult, read collected works. Are you a philosopher? Do you have philosophical inclinations? Read The Life Divine. But again, if you read The Life Divine as your first book, you may not read Sri Aurobindo ever again. It's a very difficult book. But you could try essays on philosophy, essays in philosophy and yoga, or you could try essays divine and human. Are you a practical man on the ground, a politician, a person who engages with the world today? Karma Yogin. So for different, I don't have a single answer to give to anybody who asks me this question, and I have been asked this repeatedly. This morning, again, somebody asked me over breakfast, which book should I begin with? And so this book is an answer. So what I say, Millie, is that...
Let's begin with this one.
No, wait. She's trying to sell the book. I'm just trying to...
Of course, I'm the publisher, and you should too, you're the writer.
What I say is that if you find Sri Aurobindo difficult to read, read The Mother. If you find Mother difficult to read or too voluminous, she too has huge number of volumes to her credit, again, physically that large, then you pick this book up and get your feet wet with Sri Aurobindo.
Absolutely. We'll take your advice, Gautam. I also wanted to ask you, about, the relevance of Sri Aurobindo in today's times, because this is a very special year. This is the 150th birth anniversary of Sri Aurobindo. There are a lot of things happening around the world and in India. How do you think Sri Aurobindo is relevant today, particularly to the people of India?
I don't know about India. I'll come to it. He's most relevant to India, but Indians somehow have cancelled him. But in Paris, in one of the most elite universities, Millie, perhaps you don't know this, Sri Aurobindo is now part of the curriculum. It happened last month. And so gradually, I think the ideas of Sri Aurobindo, which are essentially universal, are now, that it seems to me as though that time has come. And I'll explain how. Let's look at the Russia-Ukraine conflict. It's the biggest thing today. It's biggest because there is an energy crisis that has come through it. There is an inflationary crisis that has come through it. There is an interest rate crisis that's happening across the world, and it's not restricted to Europe alone. It's affecting India as well. So the entire supply chains, I don't want to bore you with my international relations parts. But this is the time where Sri Aurobindo needs to make an entry. When we talk about, let us say, freedom, what is this freedom that we mean? When we talk about unity, what is the unity? What is fraternity? And Sri Aurobindo turns it on its head and says, you have to begin with fraternity. That oneness of the Indian spiritual traditions has to, that you and I are one, all of us are part of one divine planet, is the starting point. It's not the end point. And from there, you will get your unity, you will get your freedom and everything. So this is just one small example. But I think even in the realms of poetry, for instance, if you were to try to read Savitri, has anybody read Savitri here? Nobody, yeah. If you were to pick up Savitri, it's this thick a book. It has taken him about 45 years to hone it to perfection. He has made several corrections through it. It is his magnum opus. It is the culmination of everything that Sri Aurobindo is. It is also a book that I have been unable to read. It is so powerful. It is so mantric that you read 5 or 6 verses, you read half a canto, and you're done. There is something that happens out there. There is a presence of Sri Aurobindo that comes out there, and it sort of gets inside. So that's as far as poetry goes. Today there is a lot of discussion on rediscovering India. What India was and what India wasn't, and so on. Read Renaissance, the Renaissance of India, where he talks about the Indian politics, Indian architecture, arts, and Indian philosophy and spirituality. So I believe that if we want to return to roots or not, if we want to understand this geography, if we want to understand ourselves within the spiritual principles of who we are, and which is what the Indian traditions are all about, I think Sri Aurobindo is not only the starting point, but I think it's the culmination of everything Indian, while commenting on the whole world. He talked about the failure of United Nations long back in the human cycle, and you can see it happening. The United Nations has failed either to deliver security, or to deliver harmony, or to deliver any of the public goods that it was proposed to do 75 years ago. So to that extent, I think Sri Aurobindo is an international, a national, and an individual. It's an integral approach to exploring life, understanding life, and engaging with life. It's a very life-centric writing.
Well, I've been signaled that we have only 10 minutes to go, so I'll ask one last question before we open it to the audience. Yeah, unfortunately, we cannot talk about all the 36 works. I mean, it'll take, I think, a lifetime to do that. But I do hope that, this conversation ignites some spark and you guys want to involve and begin to reach Sri Aurobindo. One of his seminal works is The Life Divine, Gautam. And I thought, we should tell our audience today a little bit about The Life Divine and why is it important in this.
I think instead of Life Divine as a book, why don't we talk about is the integral yoga that he has offered. Related. I think because since there is a very, very small time. So most Indian philosophical traditions, you dissolve your ego into the higher consciousness, and that's your goal. Nirvana is your goal. In integral yoga that Sri Aurobindo talks about, that is not the goal. That is the first step. According to Sri Aurobindo, and he says that this is part of the Vedic knowledge that is now lost to us. Rising to this consciousness is part one of integral yoga. Bringing that consciousness down into the earth, to divinize our body, the cells of our body, is the real transformation. When we talk, every philosophical tradition, every person, even every politician, talks about transformation. But transformation, what is that transformation in the spiritual domains? It is the descent of consciousness into our matter to make life more meaningful. Otherwise, there is no need for you and me to be sitting out here at all, wondering what to do after life. All our lives, we think about afterlife. Sri Aurobindo reverses this. The divinization of life itself by reaching to that consciousness, but without dissolution, bringing it back into the earth, into matter, that is his yoga. Second part is that this yoga is not an individual yoga, although every individual contributes to it. You don't do this yoga in order to dissolve, like I said, but to bring it down and put it as part of a collective yoga, to divinize earth, to divinize matter. That is the integral yoga. How you do this? It is not an agglomeration of bhakti, karma, jnana, but the using of bhakti, karma, jnana into this higher consciousness and bringing it back. That integral yoga is the new, I would say, this is the 7th spiritual tradition of India.
So if you have any question, please raise your hand and we will get the mic to you.
Thank you. First of all, I have been twice visited ashram and I have attended some of the seminars as well there, 5 days one of workshop. And they always talk about Savitri and Mother. My question to you is, when I came from Maharashtra to South India, it took me some 15 years from there to here. And then I came to know about Sri Aurobindo. Whether that was some it limited to Pondicherry in some ways, and then it never spread to the North India or the western part of this one, philosophy specifically, books specifically. And now I find it more relevant when I read the books of integral yoga specifically, and how it matters nowadays specifically. So whether the movement, whatever Sri Aurobindo and Ashrama movement, that was more of a, remained in the Pondicherry and South India specifically, never reached to this one similar to Swami Vivekananda, where there are ashramas and everything everywhere. So that spread somewhere, not gone, and that's why we find it difficult finding Sri Aurobindo relevant in North India or some others.
Thank you, sir. It's like coming from, it took me 2.5 hours to come from Delhi to Bangalore. But from Bangalore to this venue took another 2 hours. So I think your journey is similar. But jokes aside, the ashram and Sri Aurobindo we don't believe in evangelizing the ideas. We are not here to spread. We are not here to convert. We are not here to transform. This book has been written in order that the work that exists, this treasure trove that you say is not available easily, becomes available. My sense is that let's forget what the ashram wants to or doesn't want to do, or what Sri Aurobindo desired or did not desire. But I think we owe it as Indians to ensure that Sri Aurobindo enters our textbooks, our primary school. Every child should know about Sri Aurobindo. After that, he or she can decide whether he wants to follow the path or not. But at least placing it out there is the job of the state. Sri Aurobindo never wanted, he said, I'm happy with 100 of my disciples, and that was okay. Today the ashram is 1,409 people. So the community within the ashram has grown. The wider community across the world is in millions. So the books are all generally available, but you are right, sir, that they haven't been maybe adequate. But because that's the philosophy. We are not here to force you to read or push you to read. We just express ourselves. And I don't know if you will understand this, but I think Sri Aurobindo will find you, is what we believe in.